The Falcon's Gambit, a lone glyph shimmering like heat haze above Martian dunes, now dominated Elon Musk's Twitter feed. His terse caption, "Falcon takes flight. Coordinates locked. Seek the serpent's eye." The internet predictably
Liftoff
exploded.
of the Delta
Within
rocket
minutes.
carrying
Hashtag
blast,
Musk secret
a gamma ray
mission.
telescope
Hashtag
searching
serpent's
for
eye.
unseen physics
And
in
hashtag
the stars
Falcon
of the
launch
galaxy.
saturated trending topics. Theories spiraled from a plausible SpaceX supply run to the ISS to the wildly improbable notion of Musk constructing a fire-breathing avian guardian for the Texan frontier. Cryptocurrency zealots proclaimed a veiled endorsement of Dogecoin's ascent. Doomsayers unearthed dusty prophecies of plumed serpents and interstellar tycoons. The instigator himself, breathed in enigmatic silence, only stoked the flames that a grainy paparazzi shot captured his messianic aura as he emerged from a Tesla Cybertruck near the Boca Chica SpaceX facility, clad in simple black. The image was already morphing into meme fodder. Far below the vibrant surface of Washington, D.C., Agent Ava Rostova hunched over her workstation at Secret Service HQ. Her office, secure and lightless, carried the faint, metallic tang of ozone. The thrum of the server farm pulsed through the floor, a constant. Companioned at IT was 1:17 a.m. Rostova was sifting through threat assessments for an upcoming visit from Luxembourg's head of state, a digital sifting exercise, each perceived danger demanding painstaking review, a stray comma in a blog, an oblique threat buried in a comment thread, a dubious pattern of online activity. Each demanded analysis, cross-referencing, evaluation. The most insignificant anomaly might unveil a lethal scheme. Rostova excelled at her demanding work. Her mind, a finely calibrated instrument, could extract critical details with ruthless efficiency. Some colleagues half-joked she was a cyborg, programmed for protection. The jab wasn't wholly inaccurate. She initiated a diagnostic scan on a suspect IP address, the screen's glow illuminating her sharp features. Her dark hair was twisted into a severe knot, emphasizing her angular bone structure. The sole burst of color resided in a small, framed photo of her niece pinned to the monitor's corner, a beaming, gap-toothed girl, radiating unfiltered happiness. That IT was a reminder of everything she defended, a beacon in the digital murk. A cough broke the silence. Rostova didn't need to look. Special Agent in Charge Davies' nightly rounds were as reliable as the tides. "Rostova," Davies rumbled, his voice low. "Still burning the midnight oil? You need to learn to delegate, Agent, that we don't compensate overtime for forging a union with the machines." "Almost done, sir," Rostova replied, her tone even. "Just finalizing this threat assessment." Davies lumbered closer, his gaze settling on the screen. "Anything juicy? Potential threat linked to the Luxembourg delegation. A chain of anonymous posts advocating disruptive demonstrations." Davies grunted. "Protest. We'll monitor it." "Anything else?" He paused, then coughed again. "See what Musk tweeted." Rostova frowned, her fingers poised above the keyboard. "Musk? No, sir, I haven't the bandwidth for celebrity buzz." Davies chuckled dryly. "Celebrity buzz. Right at he dropped some cryptic drivel about a falcon and a serpent. The internet's ablaze." He waved dismissively, likely a marketing gambit for his next project. "Don't squander your time." "Understood, sir." Rostova kept her voice neutral, concealing her thoughts. She found Musk's escapades wearisome, his utterances a steady barrage of noise in an already tumultuous world. He was a disruptor, a provocateur who seemed to thrive on bedlam. She favored order, predictability, command. Davies lingered, his gaze lingering on Rostova's screen. "Just wanted to ensure you were informed that we can't afford to chase shadows when real dangers lurk." "Of course, sir." Davies nodded, then retreated toward his office, his footsteps echoing in the stillness. Rostova watched him leave, then refocused on the screen. The suspect IP address pinged again, its origin traced to a server farm in Estonia. She logged the detail, earmarking it for further review. Yet despite her focus, a seed of uncertainty had taken root. Musk's tweet, dismissed by Davies as inconsequential, lingered at the edge of her awareness. Falcon takes flight. Coordinates locked. Seek the serpent's eye. The words resonated, calculated, perhaps coded. She reasoned it was nothing more than Musk's customary eccentricity. Still, a persistent unease gnawed at her. Rostova valued her intuition, her knack for sensing peril where others saw only happenstance. And right now, her senses urged her to investigate. After Davy's departure, Rostova minimized the threat assessment and opened a fresh browser window with a sigh. She typed Elon Musk Twitter into the search bar and clicked the top result. There it was, the shimmering glyph, the cryptic message. She studied it, her mind churning, attempting to decode the meaning behind the phrasing. Falcon.SpaceX Serpent's Eye. What could it signify? She selected one of the trending hashtags, hashtag Serpent's Eye, and was instantly inundated with a deluge of theories, supposition, and utter fantasy. IT was a digital abyss, a black hole of disinformation. Rostova shut the window, feeling a headache begin to blossom. This was futile. She couldn't afford to be swallowed by internet conjecture. She had pressing work, tangible threats to analyze. However, as she attempted to refocus on the threat assessment, her gaze kept drifting back to the minimized Twitter window. The image, the enigmatic words, seemed imprinted on her vision. Finally, with a frustrated sigh, she yielded. She initiated a secure chat window and composed a message to Agent Hayes, a former colleague in the FBI's cybercrime division. Hayes, she typed, got an odd one. Musk posted something cryptic. Might be nothing, but my gut says to check it out. Take a look when you get a chance. She attached a screenshot of Musk's tweet and sent it. Then, with a deep breath, she closed the window and compelled herself to return to the Luxembourg delegation. Yet, even as she worked, a corner of her mind remained captivated by the vision of the Falcon, ascending, its destination veiled in enigma. And the serpent's gaze, cold and calculating, fixed upon the darkness. The game was afoot. Infiltration protocol. Elon tugged at the comically large safety vest, the rigid plastic of the goggles biting into his nasal bridge. He'd fought tooth and nail against them. But Svetlana, his flamboyant Russian costumer, had been implacable. Details Elon. The devil resides there. You expect them to believe a billionaire incognito as a cleaner if you skimp on the verisimilitude? He exhaled, the faint vapor beating inside the tight-fitting respirator. He loathed this masquerade, this sensation of diminishment, of fading into the background. Still, Svetlana's point resonated. Nuance was key, particularly when infiltrating the heart of the beast. The van, a dented Ford Econoline proclaiming clean sweep solutions, polishing America, one bin at a time, sputtered outside the Secret Service perimeter. He eased it forward, the brakes emitting a tortured shriek that he'd spent weeks poring over their security blueprints, pinpointing vulnerabilities, predictable patterns. The early morning staff rotation, the reliance on cursory visual checks for support personnel that he leaned out, displaying a meticulously crafted fake ID featuring a grainy, unflattering photo snapped at a roadside diner along the I-95 corridor, along with a plausible employee identification number. Clean sweep solutions, he muttered, his voice rendered tinny by the mask. Scheduled service, Sector 4. Degreasing the grease traps. The guard, a fresh-faced kid barely out of high school, gave the ID a cursory glance before his gaze drifted back to the sports scores flickering on a portable TV. He barely spared Elon's gaze a second look. Sign the manifest, the guard instructed, gesturing to a tattered logbook. And don't forget your PP. We had an incident last month involving some biomatter. A visible shudder ran through him. Elon scrawled an illegible signature. Bob Smith. And the time. Sleep had been a luxury lately. Raw nerves and caffeine fueled him, a potent and precarious combination. He guided the van past the barrier, his pulse a frantic drumbeat that he was within the compound. The headquarters thrummed with pre-dawn energy. Agents hurried by, clutching steaming mugs and murmuring into comms that he adhered to the route Svetlana had painstakingly devised, threading the maze-like corridors with practiced familiarity. He even hummed a tuneless rendition of Mr. Sandman, striving to project an air of blithe ordinariness. He passed a cluster of agents near a water cooler, debating the Luxembourg delegation, but a woman with steely eyes and an even steelier resolve broke off mid-sentence, her gaze briefly snagging on him. Elon averted his eyes, concentrating on the squeak of his rubber soles against the slick floor. Rostova. Her profile was etched in his mind. He felt her scrutiny, like a physical pressure on his spine. Reaching Sector 4, a sterile utility room choked with pipes and ducts, he extracted a hefty wrench, a relic from a bygone era, procured online, and feigned tightening a bolt. The resonant clang filled the small space that he paused, holding his breath, anticipating the tread of approaching footsteps. Silence. Meanwhile, in her fifth-floor office, Ava Rostova took a sip of lukewarm coffee and scanned the latest threat analyses. The Luxembourg delegation remained the primary focus, yet Musk's cryptic tweet continued to prickle her instincts. It was a dangling thread, a sour note in an otherwise harmonious composition. She accessed the perimeter security feed, fast-forwarding to the early morning shift change. The grainy monochrome images flickered on the screen. Vehicles streamed through the checkpoint. She paused on a Clean Sweep Solutions van. The driver, masked and goggled, presented an ID with minimal scrutiny. She zoomed in on the driver's face, attempting to sharpen the image. The resolution was poor, the features indistinct. Still, something felt amiss. The line of the jaw, the set of the shoulders, an almost imperceptible hunch, a whisper of unease. Rostova, though, trusted her gut. She rewound the footage, tracking the van as it entered the complex. Nothing overtly suspicious. The driver adhered to the designated path, vanishing down the corridor towards Sector 4. Frowning, she ran a hand through her dark hair. Probably nothing. She reasoned that a mundane sanitation worker, simply doing his job. The feeling lingered, however, a persistent itch she couldn't ignore. She resolved to cross-reference the Clean Sweep Solutions employee roster, just to be absolutely certain. Back in Sector 4, Elon yanked off the respirator, gasping in stale, musty air, a welcome reprieve from the claustrophobic confines of the mast. He checked his watch. 15 minutes to locate his target, to sow the seeds of eventual pandemonium. The serpent's gaze was fixed. Now, he merely needed to strike. The director's dilemma. Static blared from the radio, a harsh prelude to the clipped voice that followed. Director Thompson, an unconventional situation at Gate 3 that a subject identifying as sanitation personnel calls himself Sweep. He claims urgent intel concerning presidential protection and insists on immediate access. Thompson, whose features bore the deep imprint of classified burdens, massaged his temples. He was mired in a futile review of evacuation strategies for the upcoming G7 summit, a Sisyphean task against the tide of escalating dangers. Unconventional how, precisely, he sighed in the microphone. Claims to be waste management. Callsign Sweep. Says he must speak with you. Personally, keeps referencing the canary. The voice oozed skepticism. Sir, the gentleman reeks of yesterday's garbage. An industrial cleaner. Copious amounts. A spark of annoyance flickered within Thompson. Canary, what the hell? Rostova's unit hasn't raised any alarms, correct? Negative, Director. All sectors report normal to Rostova's observing Sweep. But there's nothing concrete, just peculiar conduct. Marked hesitation. Exaggerated caution for someone who handles refuse. Peculiar conduct. Enough to raise Thompson's hackles. In his world. Peculiar often foreshadowed disaster. He scrubbed at his tired eyes. Patch him through. A moment later, the radio sputtered, then delivered a muffled, heavily garbled voice. Director Thompson, Sweep here. I need to speak with you about the canary and the president. Urgently. The voice was artificially deepened, strained to the point of caricature. Thompson leaned in, a knot forming in his gut. Sweep, this is Director Thompson. Provide full identification and the nature of your business. Silence thrummed in the air, thick as a shroud. Then the voice returned, softer now, almost imploring. Director, can't do that over comms. I require a face-to-face. It's a matter of national security. The president's well-being may hinge on it. Thompson stared at the device, his mind a whirlwind that a sanitation worker, alleging information regarding a threat to the commander-in-chief, employing a code phrase he didn't recognize. It was preposterous, probably just another nut job. But the desperation lacing the voice, and Rostova's unease that he valued Rostova's intuition, he conjured images of the ceaseless threat analyses, the war games, the fallback positions that consumed his every thought. He envisioned the vast responsibility he carried, the crushing weight of safeguarding the president. "Give me one good reason I should entertain this charade," he demanded, his tone hardening. "Because," the voice replied, the distortion fleetingly receding, revealing a trace of something recognizable. "Because you sense something amiss, that you've felt it, haven't you? Subtle shifts in the atmosphere. The canary has fallen silent, director. You understand the implications." Thompson's breath hitched. He hadn't voiced his apprehensions regarding the president's safety to his soul. He'd written it off as simple paranoia, an occupational hazard. But this man, he knew or claimed that he ran through the possible scenarios, a calculated attempt to destabilize the agency, an elaborate disinformation campaign, or, heaven forbid, a genuine danger that had evaded detection. He checked the time. Each wasted second could prove fatal. He couldn't afford to dismiss this outright. "Rostova," he barked into the radio. "Escort sweep to my office. Maximum security protocols, comprehensive search, and Rostova, expect anything." He killed the connection and rose. His chair groaning against the polished floor, he walked to the window, gazing out at the manicured grounds and the imposing perimeter of the Secret Service installation. Sunlight flashed off the armored glass, momentarily obscuring his vision. He pivoted back to the room, his face a mask of grim resolve. This was poised to be either the most colossal waste of time or the most pivotal encounter of his career. Either way, he harbored the distinct premonition that his carefully constructed reality was about to be shattered. He loosened his tie, a coil of apprehension tightening in his abdomen. He knew, with chilling certainty, that whatever sweep was about to reveal, it would be far from comforting. Algorithm of fear. The stale air in the windowless conference room, thick with apprehension, prickled Director Thompson's nostrils. He commanded the mahogany table, its polished surface reflecting the stark glare of overhead fluorescence. T.O. is right. Elon Musk, radiating calculated serenity, tinted his fingers, a subtle glint of ennui in his gaze. Director Musk intoned, his voice a resonant whisper. "As previously mentioned, my team has conceived an algorithm that we've christened it Canary Watch." A fleeting, almost mischievous smile touched his mouth, perhaps a touch unsubtle. Thompson grunted, unmoved by the Silicon Valley showmanship. "Cut to the chase, Mr. Musk." Musk gave a slight bow of acknowledgement. Canary Watch trawls an immense, ever-evolving ocean of data, social media currents, news streams, the shadowy depths of dark web forums, even veil financial exchanges, seeking patterns that presage impending attacks. That IT dissects sentiment, deciphers threatening language, maps network connections, and tracks resource acquisition. Imagine it as a finely tuned instrument for detecting nascent violence, directed at an exceedingly sensitive device. The algorithm, Musk detailed, functioned on a complex web of interconnected variables, perpetually learning and evolving. Jargon cascaded from his lips, Bayesian inference, spectral analysis, latent semantic indexing, terms that washed over Thompson, leaving him unmoved. The only thing that mattered was the outcome. And the result, Thompson demanded. His voice taut. Musk's eyes darted to a broad monitor affixed to the wall. A mesmerizing tapestry of data points throbbed on the screen, lines of code cascading beneath. The algorithm has spotlighted a particular individual. Elevated probability of posing a direct threat to the president. Thompson's body stiffened. Identification. The screen reconfigured, solidifying into a detailed image that a man in his mid-30s, with a shaved head and icicle blue eyes, returned their stare. His name, boldly displayed below the photograph, declared, Daniel Carter, known aliases, Zero, Reaper, Judge Carter. Musk pressed on, his tone devoid of warmth, presents a deeply unsettling profile. History of radical ideologies, a documented online presence advocating for violent upheaval, no prior convictions, yet significant monetary activity indicative of resource gathering. The algorithm noted an abrupt change in his travel routines, coinciding with the president's impending rally in Philadelphia. A cold fist clenched around Thompson's gut. He rubbed a hand over his short, regimented hair. What kind of danger are we facing? Based on a refined sentiment parsing and network architecture, Canary Watch anticipates a high chance of a lone actor strike aimed at the president during the rally. Probable employment of a concealed weapon. Silence descended, heavy and absolute. Thompson processed the information, his thoughts racing. A lone operator. The most elusive threat, the most resistant to prevention. Rostova, he snapped into the intercom. Get in here, pronto. Within moments, Agent Ava Rostova swept into the room, her face a study in professional indifference. She surveyed the setting. Musk's unsettling composure, Thompson's somber expression, the pulsing data display, and a subtle furrow creased her brow. Director, she inquired, her voice crisp and efficient. Thompson indicated the monitor. Mr. Musk here has presented us with a potential menace. He outlined Musk's assertions, omitting any mention of the enigmatic tweet. I need your assessment, Rostova. How credible is this Canary Watch, given what you see? Rostova moved toward the screen, her eyes darting over the array of displayed information. She noted the sophisticated algorithms, the tiers of examination, the sheer volume of raw data. She recognized certain markers, the extremist rhetoric, the unusual travel patterns, the irregular financial activity. Yet something felt amiss. It's exhaustive, she admitted, choosing her words with deliberation. The data points are certainly worrisome. The monetary exchanges, in particular, merit deeper scrutiny. However, she paused, turning to face Musk. How certain are you of this algorithm, Mr. Musk? What is the margin for error? The rate of false positives? Musk's gaze did not falter. Canary Watch is not without limitations. Agent Rostova, in O predictive framework is, however, based on our simulations and retrospective testing, we assess a confidence level of approximately 87%. 87%. Rostova's eyebrow arched. That was alarmingly high, possibly too high. And the false positive rate? She repeated. Musk hesitated for a fleeting instant. Comparatively minimal, below 5%. Rostova remained unconvinced. Something in Musk's posture, a faint tremor of discomfort, implied he wasn't being entirely candid. With all due respect, Mr. Musk, she stated, her tone measured and professional. Algorithms can be gamed. Data can be distorted. And 87% certainty on a forecast involving the president's well-being. That's a gamble I'm not sure we can risk without substantial confirming evidence. She turned to Thompson. Director, I recommend we launch a thorough vetting of Daniel Carter. We need to validate these claims independently. That we require human insight, not just calculations, to gauge the true nature of the threat. Thompson nodded slowly. He valued Rostova's insight. She was among his most capable agents, meticulous, astute, and unafraid to question authority. But the stakes were too critical to dismiss Musk's warning outright. Do it, he instructed Rostova. Leave nothing unexplored, and if there's even the slightest chance this Carter individual presents a danger to the president, I want him neutralized. Immediately. He turned back to Musk. Thank you, Mr. Musk. Your perspectives are valued. Agent Rostova will be in contact. Musk stood, a shadow of a smile playing on his lips. Naturally, Director, always eager to assist. He paused at the doorway, turning back for a final remark. Remember, Director, he said, his voice a soft rumble. At times, the most menacing threats are those unseen. Then he departed, leaving Thompson and Rostova in the sterile quiet of the conference room, the hum of algorithmic dread still echoing in the space, doubt and data. With all due respect, Mr. Musk, Rostova's voice sliced through the sterile air of the conference room. An algorithm spitting out names isn't actionable intelligence. It's data. Raw, unprocessed, and potentially meaningless. Musk leaned back in his chair, a strange stillness settling over his features. He looked almost bored, a stark contrast to the urgency he'd projected earlier. Meaningless? Agent Rostova, Canary Watch's flag carder with a probability factor exceeding 97%. That's not a suggestion. It's a blaring klaxon. A klaxon built on code you wrote, Rostova countered, her gaze unwavering. The fluorescent lights glinted off the sharp angles of her face, highlighting the skepticism etched around her mouth. We operate on verifiable facts, corroborated evidence, not proprietary algorithms with undisclosed parameters. Director Thompson shifted in his seat, a subtle attempt to diffuse the escalating tension. Agent Rostova has a point. Elon, do we need to understand the why? What indicators are driving this high probability? Musk sighed, a theatrical sound that grated on Rostova's nerves. Director, I've given you access to the core parameters that IT analyzes open source data. Social media activity, news articles, financial records, travel patterns. Looking for anomalies that correlate with historical threat profiles. Carter's online rhetoric, his recent acquisition of certain materials, his sudden change in spending habits, they all paint a disturbing picture. Disturbing, perhaps, but hardly conclusive. Rostova pressed. She remembered a case from her early days with the Secret Service. A string of anonymous threats against a senator traced back to a disgruntled postal worker with a vivid imagination and an overdeveloped sense of grievance. Hours wasted, resources drained, all for nothing. That experience had hardened her, instilling a deep distrust of anything that smelled of conjecture. Rostova, fresh out of Quantico, stood before a wall of evidence. Printouts of emails, phone logs, maps marked with potential escape routes. Her mentor, Agent Davies, a grizzled veteran with eyes that missed nothing, placed a hand on her shoulder. Ava, data points are just that, points that it's the connections, the context that give them meaning that don't get lost in the noise. The problem, Mr. Musk, Rostova continued, dragging herself back to the present, is that correlation doesn't equal causation. We can find patterns in anything if we look hard enough. Show me concrete evidence, something that directly links Carter to a credible threat against the president. Musk ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that seemed genuinely frustrated. Concrete evidence often arrives too late, Agent Rostova. Canary Watch is designed to be proactive, to identify threats before they materialize. We're talking about preventing an assassination, not solving a crime after the fact. And we're talking about potentially wasting resources on a false alarm, based on the output of a black box we don't fully understand, Rostova retorted. Imagine the fallout if we publicly accuse an innocent man based on this algorithm. The director cleared his throat. Agent Rostova, I understand your concerns, but we can't afford to dismiss this outright. We'll proceed cautiously. You will independently verify Canary Watch's findings. Look at Carter's background, his associates, his activities. Leave no stone unturned. But do it discreetly. We can't afford to tip him off, regardless of whether he's a legitimate threat or not. Rostova nodded, her jaw tight. Understood, Director. She knew this was a test. Thompson was giving her the rope to either hang Musk's algorithm or to hang herself. Musk leaned forward again, his eyes now intensely focused. Agent Rostova, this isn't a game. This isn't about proving me right or wrong. This is about protecting the president. Trust me, I wish I was wrong, that I wish Canary Watch was just spitting out random noise. But it's not that I can feel it. Another memory surfaced. A stakeout in a rain-soaked alley, tracking a suspected arms dealer. Hours of surveillance. Endless cups of lukewarm coffee. The gnawing feeling in her gut that something was about to go wrong. Her partner, eager to make an arrest, wanted to move in. Rostova held him back. Wait, she'd said, her intuition screaming at her. Moments later, a rival gang ambushed the dealer, turning the alley into a bloodbath. Trust your instincts, Davies had always told her. But what if your instincts were clouded by skepticism? Asterisk. Rostova met Musk's gaze, searching for any sign of deception. She saw only an unsettling conviction, a belief so absolute it bordered on fanaticism. "I appreciate your concern, Mr. Musk," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "But I rely on facts, not feelings. That I will investigate Mr. Carter, and I will determine whether he poses a credible threat. That's my job." As she turned to leave, Rostova couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into a trap, a carefully constructed web of data and doubt, with the president's life hanging in the balance. Ticking clock. The sterile glare of the office lights bounced off Director Thompson's polished pate as he massaged his temples. "Damn it, Rostova. I still smell a rat. But the numbers don't lie. Musk's algorithm projects the critical event within 72 hours. That's unsettling." He pivoted in his chair, his gaze drawn to the inky blackness beyond the window, where Pennsylvania Avenue slumbered. Quietly, "I want this handled with maximum discretion. Only those in this room, and those with a need to know, are to be aware. No whispers, no panic. Is that clear?" Rostova managed a curt nod, the phrase echoing in her mind. 72 hours. IT felt like a fuse had been lit. "Understood, Director." "Good. Assemble your team. Keep it internal to tech and those you trust implicitly. That I need every digital trace, every scrap of communication, every conceivable vector examined. Confirm Musk's analysis, but trust no one to independently verify." In Rostova, he swung back, his stare piercing. If this is just a snipe hunt, Musk will be facing a reckoning. Her team coalesced swiftly. Chun, a digital sorcerer with forensics, Davies, a maven of open-source intelligence, and Miller, a veteran field agent renowned for his keen eye. Rostova outlined the situation, her tone crisp and professional, carefully concealing her own doubts. "Canary Watch signals a high-probability threat against the president, that we have 72 hours to validate or dismiss it. Chun, I want you to dissect recent communications, to and from individuals matching the algorithms. Profile, Davies scour social media, the dark web, any chatter hinting at something like this. Miller, you're on the ground, monitoring the designated individuals. Observe their habits, their contacts, anything anomalous. Move out." The air in the makeshift war room below Secret Service HQ vibrated with urgency. Monitors pulsed with code, topographical heat maps, and frenetic social feeds. Chun, his fingers a blur on the keyboard, unearthed a series of encrypted missives dispatched from a throwaway account to an address connected to one of the suspects. "This encryption is military-grade. Rostova. Someone has gone to great lengths to conceal this." Davies, meanwhile, highlighted a string of seemingly innocuous remarks on an obscure online forum dedicated to bird photography. "Note the timestamps, Rostova. They align perfectly with the president's scheduled appearances and the content, the fascination with vantage points, security arrangements, the types of lenses suited for long-range shots." Miller's voice crackled through the comms, laced with tension. "Rostova, I've been tailing subject for it. He's made repeated visits to a building with a clear view of the motorcade route. Claims he's an ornithologist, but I haven't seen him use binoculars once. And he's constantly checking his watch, as if waiting for a signal." Each element, initially brushed aside as coincidence, now clicked into place with disquieting accuracy, mirroring Canary Watch's predictions. Rostova felt a cold, dread coil in her gut. Musk's serene, almost distant manner replayed in her mind. Was it genuine confidence, or something far more sinister? She moved to a large whiteboard and started constructing a schematic, linking the disparate fragments of evidence. The coded emails, the suspicious online exchanges, the subject's aberrant behavior coalesced into a chilling, cohesive picture. Davies run facial recognition on everyone Subject 4 has interacted with in the past week. Chun, crack that encryption. I need to know the contents of those emails. The clock continued its relentless march, 54 hours. The pressure was crushing that a trickle of perspiration snaked down Rostova's temple. They were nearing the truth, but with each step closer, the reality seemed more appalling. Deep into the night, Chun achieved a partial decryption of one of the emails. The message was fragmented, a jumble of coded language. Yet one phrase leaped out. "The eagle flies at dawn." A shiver coursed through Rostova. Eagle was the Secret Service's code name for the president. Dawn, the president was scheduled to preside over a ribbon cutting at sunrise the following day. "Miller, I want Subject 4 in custody now." "Davies, compile everything you have on that building overlooking the motorcade route. Blueprints, security layouts, everything. This is not a drill. This is genuine." Sleep was a forgotten luxury. Rostova studied the whiteboard, the finalized diagram a grim testament to the imminent danger. Canary Watch had been right all along. But the question gnawing at her wasn't if a threat existed, but why Musk possessed this knowledge. And what game was he truly playing? 48 hours. The real gambit was about to begin. Rogue Protocol. "They're wasting time, Agent Rostova." Musk said, his voice a low hum that vibrated through the secure comms line. "Bureaucracy is a disease. We're talking about the president's life here." Rostova gripped her phone tighter, the steel of her Sig Sauer digging in her hip through her jacket. "Mr. Musk, with all due respect, we apprehended a suspect. The threat appears neutralized." "Appears," he scoffed, the single word laced with dismissiveness. "You caught a pawn, a low-level operative following instructions. The real threat, the architect, is still out there, planning the next move. My algorithm is screaming about it." Rostova felt a familiar wave of frustration. His arrogance was infuriating, yet the gnawing doubt he planted refused to be uprooted. "We are conducting a full investigation, Mr. Musk, that we have resources, protocols. Protocols that move at the speed of continental drift," he interrupted, his tone sharper now. "While you're filling out forms and dotting I's, the real threat is solidifying. Canary Watch doesn't deal in probabilities, Agent at IT deals in certainties, and it's certain that the danger hasn't passed." The line went dead. Rostova stared at her phone, a knot tightening in her stomach. She replayed the conversation in her mind, searching for a tell, a sign that Musk was playing a game. But all she heard was a raw, almost desperate urgency. She walked to the window of her temporary office in the jade at Edgar Hoover Building, the dull gray skyline of DC mirroring the turmoil inside her. Thompson had been adamant about independent verification. But what if Musk was right? What if they were missing something? An email pinged on her secure laptop. An update from her team assigned to monitor Musk's activities that IT was brief, almost cryptic. Unusual network activity detected. Significant resource allocation shift. Possible independent operation initiated. Rostova felt a chill run down her spine. He hadn't waited. He was going rogue. She typed furiously, pulling up satellite imagery of Musk's various facilities. SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink. Her eyes scanned for any sign of unusual activity. Then she saw it. At a remote test facility in Nevada, a convoy of unmarked vehicles, including several modified Tesla Cybertrucks, were leaving the compound. The timestamp confirmed it. Less than an hour ago. "Damn it," she muttered, slamming her fist on the desk. Musk had mobilized. He was deploying his own team, his own resources, his own investigation, completely independent of the Secret Service. She called Marcus, her lead analyst. "Marcus, I need everything you can get on those vehicles leaving the Nevada test facility. Identification, destination, personnel manifests, everything. And find out what kind of equipment they're carrying." "On it, Agent." Marcus replied instantly, his voice tight with urgency. Rostova hung up and dialed Thompson's direct line. The director answered on the second ring. "Thompson," he barked. "Sir, we have a problem. Musk has launched an independent operation that a convoy of vehicles left his Nevada facility within the last hour that we believe he's pursuing the threat independently." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Rostova could almost hear Thompson's jaw clenching. "Damn that cowboy," Thompson finally growled. "What's he thinking?" "I don't know, sir, but he's clearly convinced the threat is still active. We need to get ahead of this, that if he stumbles into something, or worse, interferes with an ongoing operation, it could be disastrous." "Agreed that I want him contained, Rostova. Discreetly that I don't want him making headlines, or worse, becoming a martyr." "Understood, sir." Rostova knew what contained meant, that IT meant shadowing him, monitoring his every move, and if necessary, stopping him. but it also meant diverting resources, spreading her team thin, and potentially missing a critical piece of the puzzle. The as she hung up, Rostova's mind raced. Was Musk truly trying to help, or was this all part of some elaborate game? Was he a visionary genius, or a dangerous narcissist playing God? And more importantly, could she trust him? She glanced at the photo of her father on her desk, a former KGB agent who had defected to the U.S. decades ago. He had taught her to trust her instincts, to see through deception, to understand the motivations behind people's actions. Her instincts screamed that Musk was reckless, arrogant, and potentially dangerous, but they also whispered that he might be right. And if he was, the stakes were higher than she could possibly imagine. She looked back at the gray D.C. skyline. The dawn was coming, and with it, the potential for chaos. She had a rogue billionaire to contain, a presidential threat to investigate, and a growing sense that she was walking into a trap, the Shadows Trail. Musk pivoted in his ergonomic chair, the expansive Canary Watch interface illuminating his face. Designation, Nightingale, he stated, his tone unsettlingly level. Real name, Samuel Thorne. Formerly military, demolitions expert. Separated from service following a difference of opinion regarding acceptable conduct in Kandahar. Rostova, ramrod straight before the screen, arched a skeptical brow. Difference of opinion? Suffice it to say, Mr. Thorne held a broader interpretation of engagement parameters. Musk parried a fleeting, indecipherable glint in his eyes. Canary Watch flagged him 72 hours ago. Initially low probability, but escalating rapidly due to linguistic anomalies within his digital footprint, coupled with atypical procurement patterns. A keystroke brought up a cascade of images, Thorne's online pronouncements, steeped in patriotic fervor and simmering resentment. Invoices for ammonium nitrate and detonators. He's purchasing fertilizer, Mr. Musk. Plenty of individuals do. Rostova's voice dripped with thinly veiled impatience. Indeed, Musk conceded, reclining, forming a steeple with his fingers. However, not in conjunction with phrases like the end of tyranny and liberty's pyrotechnics within a 3-day period. The algorithm recognizes context, Agent Rostova, that it's more than mere keyword spotting. He enlarged a map overlaid with a pulsating crimson aura. His projected primary target, based on predictive movement and network assessment, lies directly along the president's parade route, proximate to the National Archives. A knot of unease tightened in Rostova's stomach. And the motive? Musk paused, a harshness settling over his features. Thorne believes the president is a mere pawn of a shadow government. He fancies himself a patriot, a liberator. The sort of distorted narrative that has become distressingly commonplace. Rostova offered no reply, swiveling towards Agent Davies, whose fingers danced across her keyboard. Davies' exhaustive background check on Samuel Thorne. Military history, purchasing records, digital activity. Everything Musk just divulged. Prioritize expediency. Davies nodded, her hands a blur on the keys. Rostova watched, her apprehension growing. Musk's system possessed a disturbing precision, yet she couldn't afford to depend on his data alone. Verifying independently was paramount. The hours stretched, thick with tension. Rostova patrolled the room, fueled by coffee and a mounting sense of foreboding. The preliminary reports trickled in. Thorne's military history corroborated. The difference of opinion in Kandahar revealed to be a horrific episode involving civilian casualties. His purchase. History traced a steady accumulation of materials needed to make explosives over the preceding month. His online presence was a labyrinth of conspiracy theories and violent diatribes. At last, Davies looked up, her face etched with gravity. Agent Rostova, confirmation. Thorne aligns with the profile Musk outlined. Significant quantities of ammonium nitrate, detonators, and associated materials, consistent with explosive device construction, have been acquired. That we also intercepted encrypted messages alluding to a grand spectacle plan to coincide with the president's itinerary. A shiver traced Rostova's spine. The National Archives? Affirmative. He's been scouting the vicinity for weeks, photographing points of interest, analyzing security measures. Musk, who had been a silent observer, simply inclined his head. As anticipated, Rostova ignored him, her thoughts racing. Get a SWAT team prepped. We move now that I want him secured before he can finalize anything. She turned towards Musk, her gaze steely. Your Canary Watch may have provided us with a jump, Mr. Musk, but this is now a Secret Service endeavor. You are to remain here and suspend all autonomous action. Understood? Musk offered a faint, inscrutable smile. Perfectly. Elsewhere, in a cramped garage on the city's fringe, Samuel Thorne delicately connected wires to a rudimentary circuit board. Beads of perspiration dotted his brow as he labored, his hands exhibiting a slight tremor. A radio broadcast blared news concerning the president's impending visit, further stoking his righteous fury. His gaze drifted to a framed photograph resting on his workbench. His younger brother, a soldier fallen in combat, a victim of the same corrupt structure he was about to dismantle. They won't silence you, Danny, he rasped, his voice thick with emotion. They won't silence any of us. He checked the timer a final time, his eyes burning with zealous conviction. Tomorrow, the truth would be revealed to the world. Tomorrow, liberty would ignite. Code red. He's mobile. Musk's voice, disturbingly calm, crackled over the comms. Ava gripped the steering wheel, the tires of the armored SUV protesting as she swerved through the thickening parade traffic. Sirens wailed, a discordant symphony against the backdrop of marching bands and cheering crowds. Confirmed location: Constitution Avenue, heading east, speed fluctuating, erratic driving. Canary Watch predicts point of interception near the National Gallery of Art. Erratic driving. Sound about right, Ava muttered, glancing at her partner, Agent Davies, who was frantically coordinating with the SWAT team. Davies, ETA on backup? 5 minutes, tops that they're stuck behind the press convoy that I told them to ditch the vehicles and move on foot. 5 minutes felt like an eternity. The president was scheduled to arrive at the National Archives in 15. Musk, what's Thorne's current trajectory? He just made a hard right on his 68th Street. Increasing speed that he's weaving. Musk paused. Ava could almost hear the hum of his servers analyzing the data. He spotted us, initiating evasive maneuvers. Ava slammed her foot on the accelerator. The SUV surged forward, narrowly avoiding a collision with a news van. He knows we're onto him. Time to go loud. She switched on the public address system. Samuel Thorne, this is the United States Secret Service. Pull over immediately. You are a threat to national security. The only response was the screech of tires as Thorne's beat-up sedan fishtailed through the intersection. Ava caught a glimpse of him in the rearview mirror. A gaunt figure with wild eyes, his face a mask of grim determination. He wasn't going to surrender. Musk, give me everything you've got. I need to know what he's planning. He's still heading towards the National Gallery. Canary Watch is analyzing his likely target. It's the parade route. Specifically, the area directly in front of the gallery's west building that he's planning a direct attack. Ava's blood ran cold. Thousands of people lined the streets, waving flags and cheering. The president would be exposed. Davies, tell the parade security team to initiate Code Red. That I repeat, Code Red. Full lockdown. Copy that. Davies' voice was tight with urgency. The chase intensified. Thorne, driving with reckless abandon, weaved through the crowd, narrowly missing pedestrians. Ava, expertly navigating the chaos, stayed hot on his tail. The air was thick with the smell of exhaust fumes and the rising crescendo of panic. He's slowing down, Musk reported. Approaching the gallery, he's looking for a parking spot there. He's found one deploying now. Ava screeched to a halt, blocking Thorne's car. She and Davies leaped out, weapons drawn. Secret Service, freeze. Thorne ignored them. He wrenched open his car door and bolted towards the crowd, a bulky backpack slung over his shoulder. Ava fired a warning shot into the air. The sound echoed through the square, momentarily silencing the cheers. Stop! Don't make me do this! Ava yelled, her voice strained. Thorne didn't stop. He pushed through the throng of people, his eyes fixed on something in the distance. The presidential reviewing stand, now visible beyond the crowd. Ava and Davies pursued him, Weaving through the panicked onlookers, the crowd surged and parted, a sea of terrified faces. Ava caught a glimpse of Thorne's hand reaching into his backpack. "He's going for it," Davy shouted, firing another warning shot. Thorne stumbled, dropping something metallic to the ground, a small, innocuous-looking remote detonator. He scrambled to pick it up, his fingers fumbling with the button. Ava lunged, tackling him to the ground just as his finger made contact. A deafening silence followed, broken only by the screams of the crowd. Nothing. The detonator was a dud, or maybe the bomb wasn't ready. Ava didn't have time to contemplate it. She wrestled Thorne to the ground, pinning him beneath her. Davy secured his hands behind his back. "Bomb squad. We need bomb squad now," Ava yelled into her comms, her chest heaving. Musk's voice, unusually sharp, cut through the chaos. "He's not working alone. Canary Watch is detecting another spike, another potential threat." Constitution Avenue, 2 blocks west, standing on the steps of the East Building of the National Gallery, dressed in a dark blue suit, holding a camera. Ava's heart skipped a beat. The East Building. The backup plan. If Thorne failed, someone else was ready. She glanced at Davies. "Take Thorne into custody. I've got another lead." She sprinted towards the East Building, pushing through the fleeing crowd. The parade route was in complete disarray, a chaotic scene of fear and confusion. Ava focused on Musk's description, scanning the faces of the onlookers. A dark blue suit. A camera. She spotted him but a man standing calmly on the steps of the East Building. A professional-grade camera held to his eye. He wasn't taking pictures of the parade. He was aiming at something else. Something higher. The presidential reviewing stand. Ava drew her weapon, her hand trembling slightly. Code Red was in full effect, and it was far from over. Unbelievable. The East Building, a concrete leviathan, sprawled, its shadow swallowing the street as the parade crawled onward. Rostova's fingers tightened around her Sig Sauer. A frantic drum solo played on her ribs. Thorne had been a ruse, a boisterous diversion. This was the main event. East Building rooftop, Musk's voice. A digital serenity amidst the pandemonium, whispered in her ear. "Canary Watch confirms. Threat level critical. Thermal lock established. Target, presidential limousine." Rostova's report to command was clipped professional. "Sniper, East Building roof. Presidential detail, heads up." She bolted toward a service entrance, flanked by 2 agents, their footfalls echoing strangely in the sudden hush that blanketed the crowd near the building. The cheers had evaporated, leaving a vacuum of stark terror, a lungful of held breath. She forced the rooftop access door, finding herself in a cramped, dimly lit stairwell. Ascending with honed precision, each movement calculated, senses razor-sharp, the air grew frigid, laced with the tang of ozone and aged concrete. The rooftop burst into view, weapon instantly raised. She swept the gravel expanse and tangle of antennae. Then she saw him, outlined against the glaring afternoon sun. Not a seasoned assassin, but a youth, barely past adolescence, in unremarkable garb, hands rock steady on a precision rifle. His eyes, magnified by the scope, were glued to the presidential limousine, now a distant, shimmering trinket. "Secret Service, drop the weapon," Rostova barked, her tone resolute. The kid didn't so much as twitch, frozen like a statue sculpted from despair. "He's rigged." Musk's voice sliced through the tension. Detonator in his left hand. Dead man's switch. Release boomed up military-grade explosives. Could crater half the block. Her mind spun. Protocols were useless. Direct action meant detonation. She needed leverage, a way to defuse him without triggering oblivion. "Musk, got anything?" she murmured, her voice barely audible. "Affirmative," he replied. Tell him his mother's calling. Dinner's ready. Meatloaf's on the menu." Rostova gaped, first at the boy, then at the rifle, then back again. This was lunacy, but she trusted Musk's code, its capacity to discern patterns, anticipate reactions. "Your mother called," she stated, her voice surprisingly even. "Dinner's ready. Meatloaf's on the menu." His eyes flickered, a momentary spasm of confusion distorting his features. For a heartbeat, his grip on the rifle softened. "Now." Musk bellowed. Tell him the meatloaf is vegan. Rostova relayed the insane message, her pulse hammering. The meatloaf, it's vegan. His face twisted in a mask of disbelief and revulsion. His hold on the detonator wavered. Micro-drone deploying, Musk announced a minuscule drone, practically invisible, no larger than a hummingbird, materialized from behind Rostova. Its movements a blurred IT hung near his left hand, then, with laser precision, emitted a pinpoint EMP. The detonator went dark that he gasped, his eyes widening in shock that he released the switch. Nothing. Rostova seized the moment. She lunged, kicking the rifle away and tackling him to the ground. He offered scant resistance, his features a study in bewilderment. You're under arrest, she declared, securing his wrists. Backup flooded the rooftop in seconds. Rostova rose, brushing off her jacket, the adrenaline tide receding. The presidential motorcade, briefly stalled, resumed its progress. Later, back at headquarters, the young man, identified as Daniel Vargas, sat in interrogation, his gaze still unfocused at a loner, an outcast marinated in online conspiracy theories. He believed the president was a pawn of a clandestine cabal and felt ordained to intervene. Musk stood beside Rostova, watching the proceedings through the one-way glass. See, he commented, his voice flat. Patterns predictable. Canary Watch flagged him hours ago. Connecting the dots was all it took. Rostova glanced at him, a hint of reluctant admiration in her eyes. The meatloaf vegan? Musk shrugged. Improvisation. Algorithms suggested a high probability of aversion to plant-based protein substitutes within the target demographic. Figured it was worth a shot. The president himself phoned to express gratitude. Musk waved off the accolades, reiterating the importance of proactive threat assessment. This was too close, Mr. President, that we need to anticipate these threats, not just react. A week later, after rigorous trials, the Secret Service formally integrated Canary Watch into its security protocols. Rostova, still unconvinced but clearly impressed, was tasked with overseeing its deployment. At her desk, she stared at the complex algorithms scrolling across the screen. IT was a potent instrument, a paradigm shift, but it was also an enigma. Its inner mechanisms obscure, its biases potentially hazardous. As Rostova burrowed deeper into the system, she couldn't shed the suspicion that Musk was concealing something, that Canary Watch was more than just a threat detection program. She couldn't articulate it, but she sensed the truth lay hidden within the code, waiting to be unearthed. The parade incident was closed. The president was secure. But for Ava Rostova, the inquiry was just beginning.